Hey, so you remember when I recently said that I wasn't going to review any more new games on the channel? Well, here's another one. So they did it. The team at Konami and WayForward have, in my eyes, officially revived Contra as a good video game series. Something I have not seen in quite a while. This is not a repurposed, free-to-play, gacha Chinese mobile phone game. It's not a pachinko slot machine game. It's not whatever the hell Contra Road Core was. It's a breath of fresh air. Contra is one of those franchises that's always been very near and dear to my heart. I've been a lifelong fan since I played the original Contra back on the NES and Super C. And by the way, I think both of those are better than the arcade versions. I've been waiting so many years for a worthy follow-up, and there's been so many disappointments along the way. What is the last good Contra game I played? Probably Hardcore Uprising back in the PS3 360 era. But Operation Galuga takes the series back to its roots, acting as a reimagining of the first game, but with a completely fleshed out storyline that takes future installments into account, with small plot details and some teases. Before I tell you why this game is so good, I would like to express a huge thank you and shout out to all of my Patreon members for your continued support. You guys make these videos possible, and if you'd like to have your name up here too, get exclusive perks like sneak peeks at upcoming content, detailed progress updates, behind the scenes content, access to the Discord exclusive channel, and early access to videos, go to patreon.com/GamerThumbTV, or you click the link in the description to get started. Now back to Contra. In the original game, you land on an island and instantly start blasting away soldiers and machines, and eventually monstrous aliens that totally are not xenomorphs from Alien. This time around, there's a story mode with cutscenes, a plot about an ancient artifact, and an alien general seeking to spearhead an invasion of Earth to keep humans from spreading through the galaxy. They go into the origins of Contra soldiers, why they're special. It's by no means this award-winning deep story along the lines of something like God of War Ragnarok, but it gives you enough reason to understand why you're doing what you're doing throughout the game. You meet new characters along the way that become playable as you continue the story. I've always been a big fan of this expansion of Contra characters. It's not just Bill Reiser and Lance Bean anymore. There's so many different characters in the series now, and we're still getting more of them. Each character unlocked has their own minor differences like special abilities, different amounts of health, the way they slide around or dash, but the core gameplay remains the same. This is pure Contra run and gun action. If you've played old school Contra, it's what you get here with some small additions to the gameplay mechanics. One of the worst feelings in Contra is accidentally picking up that one weapon you don't want, and then your old one goes flying off a cliff, or carrying one that you don't particularly like to use, but it's what you're stuck with for the time. This time, if you don't want the weapon you've been carrying, you can overcharge it, which destroys it to become a one-time special attack. For example, the spread gun sends little bullets bouncing all over the place. It can make all the difference when trying to get out of a difficult situation, and if you pick up the same weapon twice, you get the level 2 version of the weapon, which is going to be a little stronger, a little more powerful. And now there's perks that are unlockable. Don't worry, they're not microtransactions. There's no real-world money you have to spend to get these. It's all purchased with points earned by beating levels. Even if you lose, you still get some points. Some of them are upgraded stats like extra lives. Some give you more health. You get to keep the weapons when you die. A huge benefit to any Contra game. Your characters get improvements of some abilities, and 2 perks can be equipped at a time. So you gotta be kind of strategic with which ones you pick. Some of them are really helpful in certain levels that are gonna be more difficult. And one thing I appreciate is that the difficulty does stay balanced. The perks never really make you feel like you have an overwhelming advantage. It just helps you keep up with the difficulty of the game as you progress. Having said that, Operation Galuga is as easy or as difficult as you'd like it to be. I played on the hardest difficulty, which did present a nice challenge. I found myself repeating most of these levels 2 or 3 times before I could master them enough to be able to take down the boss at the end without getting a game over. But if you'd like a more pure old school Contra challenge, you can choose not to use any perks. Play on one hit mode where, of course, a single hit insta-kills you. That option is still available. And I've heard some complaints about the graphics. I think they look fine. The art style matches the game, and it's a WayForward developed game, so it does look like Double Dragon Neon to me with 2D gameplay. This is going to be a matter of preference. But if you don't care for the graphics much, it doesn't matter. The gameplay truly shines. Without exciting boss battles, this game would have been a total failure in my eyes. Boss battles are very important to a good 2D run and gun shooter. They nailed them. Many of the bosses are recreations of the original bosses with added attacks and a more cinematic flair. But there are some original bosses thrown in the mix too, along with bosses lifted or inspired from other games in the series. Remember that giant Terminator skeleton robot thing from Contra 3? There's a version of that boss in here. Remember the boss in Contra Hardcore that has you running towards the screen, dodging attacks? There's an original Contra boss repurposed in that style. These developers went through the series with the care and detail that it deserves and merged elements in from some of its most popular entries. And I hope they continue reimagining the rest of the series in this form. There's deep story connections to future sequels, like Doyle, the commander that gives you orders. He's the same guy giving orders in Contra Hardcore, along with other surprises by the end of the game, which I'm not going to spoil here, that directly link Operation Galuga to Contra 3, the Alien Wars, and Hardcore. It's all very fleshed out now. Obviously, these kind of run-and-gun shooters aren't 60-hour-long campaigns, nor should they be. The entire story mode took me about 3 to 4 hours to get through on hard difficulty, while revisiting previous levels to grind some points and get better perks. For an action-packed shooter, that's more than enough time for one playthrough to the end, but it doesn't really end there, if you don't want it to. There's a lot of unlockables and things to do after the game's beaten that make it very replayable. And this is kind of spoiler territory if you don't want to know what unlocks, but it's all very worthwhile. When the story mode's done, you get 2 more characters that become playable, and a complete surprise to me. I did not expect to see them. The Probotectors. If you're not familiar with who they are, back in the day the European version of Contra was censored to avoid violent depictions of combat, and Bill and Lance were replaced with robots. Most of the human characters actually were replaced with robots. Now, to be fair, this is not their first appearance in an actual Contra game, but they are playable here too, the red and blue robot, and they look super cool. And continuing on with more Contra Hardcore references, Sheena, Fang, and Brownie all become playable, which had me incredibly excited. You can tell I love Contra Hardcore, though I haven't unlocked them yet because they cost a lot of points in the shop, so it's going to require some extra playthroughs with the game's multiple modes. Aside from the story that has up to 2 players local co-op, there's an arcade mode that drops all the story bits, and it's more like the classic game, just drops you into the action as you go from stage to stage, and that's playable up to 4 players. One critique as far as multiplayer is concerned is that there's no online multiplayer. I would like to see that added in a future update, but I appreciate at least having couch co-op. I find that's something that's almost becoming a thing of the past in today's modern gaming era. It seems everything's just online now, although I would like the option of both. And there's also a challenge mode that offers different objectives like beating a certain number of enemies, time trials, mastering different weapons. It's very addictive and it's a quick way to get points for the perk shop. And if you perform well enough, you get bonus points. I'd also like to mention the music. Now, it sounds great by default, but there's some pure gold found in the shop, like retro Contra music that's unlockable, and the game detected that I like Castlevania. So it unlocked Castlevania music for Contra. It's kind of ridiculous, but it's amazing at the same time. To summarize, if you're a fan of old school run and gun games, Contra Operation Galuga is a no-brainer, especially if you're a Contra diehard like I am. It was made with respect to the series, and more importantly, respect to the player's time invested in the game. And I would like to see Konami continue making these decisions with their classic franchises. Bring on talent like the folks over at Way Forward to make these games, instead of doing them in-house. I'd love to see them take on Castlevania. That's my opinion on the game. If you'd like to see it for yourself, I will be streaming a run-through of it on this channel this Friday, March 15th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. The stream schedule is typically Mondays and Fridays now, same time. So come hang out and check it out. We always have a good time on stream. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I'll see you on Friday.